I really love the idea that, as a creator, I can do whatever I want without spending money, basically. So I could be a filmmaker, and that would take a lot of time, a lot of money to do it. And as a comic creator, I can do, I think it's just simple and objective, and it's, I don't know, it's just the way I see things, I guess. That's enough.
No, that's good. No, this is like, no, that's what.
As a creator, that's the point of view I have. As a media, it's like I think it's the most amazing and direct media ever. It's much more, it connects to the reader in a way that any other media can do, I think.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I asked this question, is because, again, you're here for love of comics, and you wonder, and I hear people talk to me about characters and story, and we'll get to this a little bit, but I always love to see what motivates people to constantly come back and be part of this. We mentioned before, we had somebody here reading comics for 62 years. 62 years, I'm like, you couldn't find anything else to do, right? He just kept coming back for comics. And there's got to be something that drives us back to this, what makes you want to be. And I'll put that back to you now, Tom. What is it about comics you love?
I've said this before, but I was one of those kids. I was no good at all the things you're supposed to be good at. I was no good at throwing balls or running fast or making friends or hanging out with people or getting along with all that stuff. All the stuff you see on TV and you're like, oh, that's what a human being's supposed to do. I wasn't doing it very well. And I was like chaotically aware of it. And somehow that kind of person, that person who feels sort of on the outside of something that everyone else is on the inside in, comics speak to them. I don't know why that is. And not just comics, but superhero comics. Women and men in tights beating up each other. It speaks to that kid who's sitting in the corner looking at all the other kids playing and doesn't understand why they're not playing with them. And they pick up a comic and they get solace from that. And they take that with them, and they become the hero of the story when they're not the hero that day. And I always think of that with every comic I write. And I honestly think the comic saved my life and sort of gave me solace when I needed it. And so I do that. Plus, it's easier than novels because you don't start the descriptions.
I really love comics because it forces you to think simply and visually. And I think that a lot of what art is trying to communicate the incommunicatable, to give somebody the experience inside your soul and your heart that you cannot explain any other way. And I think the most direct way to do that is like we did when we were cavemen, which is just put an image on the wall and maybe a couple words and trust them to get it. And I think that's, to me, what comics is. It's us returning to our basic roots as human beings. And here's an image on the wall, maybe just a few words, and our souls join together in this very narrow panel of images and words. And to me, it's very simple and profound because of that. So it's, for me, I think probably the most profound medium in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's really primal. It's like sort of music in that you don't have to be sophisticated to achieve a sophisticated feeling. For me personally, the thing that I just blows my mind about comics is the visual storytelling. I got in it for the art, and I've stayed in it for everything else. But I still get that sort of extraordinary feeling when I'm seeing what an artist can do to make me feel by just their layouts and their panel structure, and just how they'll fill the space, and when they can give you a sense of scope and a sense of deep meaning, and there's very little dialogue on the page. Those pages and those panels and that kind of storytelling, it feels so unique to comics because, in a film or in TV, the spaces, all the extra space is filled in by soundtrack and all this kind of stuff, but when you're reading comics, all the connective tissue, all the sort of space between the panels, that's filled in by you, and I feel like that is the thing that kind of draws you into participating in the story that you're reading.
Liam. Tom and Nick both touched on things that are very true to me as well. You know, I had a very similar sort of young childhood in that expo. I think, you know, people who are outsiders, and often they are creative people, do find solace in different ways. You know, often quite the broader genres of material for those kinds of people, quite often like science fiction, fantasy, horror, things that aren't real world, that take us away from the things that make us upset and make us feel uncomfortable. These places are you know, dens of solitude and great escapes into the universe. You know, that's the other thing that I love about comics. Well, there's a bunch of things. It's a fusion of words and pictures. Two things that I love, probably above all things. I love the written word. Music is also there, but I love the written word, and I love art, and I love that you can control the pace of the story by exactly what comes between the panels, the stuff that you fill in with yourself. But all the people who create comics have got the most astonishing imaginations of anybody in any medium I've ever worked with ever. I've worked a bit in film, and I've worked a bit in advertising and all sorts of other things over the years. We all dabble in these things to try and make money when it's a bit rough at times. And honestly, in no other medium do people have the skills that the writers and the artists in comics have, because of the sheer amount of output that has to be done on a month-to-month basis. You know, it's profound, and then just to be able to maintain that level of inspiration and imagination is pretty astonishing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Palmiotti,
you know, for me, it's you know, I love the challenge of comics. The idea that we get a gig and they say, all right, you need to write something entertaining, you know, and you just like sit there and get a character that you've been reading and you're writing it. So for me, like the challenge of not only writing it, but I really take great joy in the idea and hopefully the fact that I'm entertaining someone by what I'm doing. I'm making them happy. I'm taking them out of their life for a couple of minutes or an hour or whatever it may be, and showing them a good time, you know, and so that part to me is extremely satisfying. And then like coming here, sitting in a room with all you guys, and you guys took the time out today to come see us, to hear us really ramble on about horrible things, but I mean, it's such a great job because you get to use your imagination and apply it, and then, you know, for me, because I'm writing, I get to work with an artist, and an artist gives me a vision of what I wrote that I would never expect. You know, every time you write something, you get this page back of something that is like, oh my God, this is even wilder or better than I thought, and it's just a great thing. And then to give it out to the world and know it's out there, entertaining, and now these days forever. So it's just a wonderful job. It's the greatest job you can have, I think.
How much time do I have left?